There was a time not so long ago when entire nations depended on a plant so resilient, so nutritionally dense, and so easy to grow that it quietly kept millions from starvation during one of the darkest periods in human history. Yet today, most people have never heard of it. It didn't require chemical fertilizers. It thrived in poor soil. It restored the land instead of depleting it. And after the war, it was pushed aside, buried under industrial agriculture and policy shifts that favoured uniformity over resilience. If you care about real food security, sustainable growing, and the forgotten knowledge that once fed the world, this story matters. Because this wasn't just a plant, it was a system, a strategy, and a lifeline. And the lessons it offers today are more relevant than ever. This forgotten wartime crop was more than food. It was a survival system. The plant in question is the humble field pea and its close relatives, particularly legumes like fava beans and lentils. During World War II, these crops became essential across the United States and Europe. Governments actively promoted them through victory garden campaigns because they could grow quickly in rich, depleted soils and provide high-protein nutrition without relying on scarce industrial inputs. Unlike modern monocrops that demand nitrogen-heavy fertilizers, legumes work with soil bacteria to fix nitrogen directly from the air. This meant farmers and civilians alike could grow them repeatedly without exhausting the soil. In a time when synthetic fertilizer production was redirected toward explosives, this natural ability made legumes indispensable. But the real power of these crops wasn't just in their biology, it was in their flexibility. They could be eaten fresh, dried for storage, ground into flour, or even used as animal feed. One planting could serve multiple needs, something modern agriculture has largely abandoned in favour of specialisation. Why these crops disappeared after the war reveals a larger shift. After the Second World War, agriculture changed rapidly. Synthetic fertilizers became cheap and widely available, you know. Large-scale industrial farming took priority, focusing mainly on crops like corn and wheat that could be mechanized and standardized. Legumes, with their varied growth habits and lower immediate profitability, were gradually sidelined. There was also a cultural shift. Wartime foods, no matter how vital, became associated with hardship. People wanted convenience, abundance, and modernity, really. The slow, soil-building crops of the war years just didn't fit that narrative. But in pushing them aside, something important was lost. Soil health declined. Dependency on chemical inputs increased. And the resilience that once defined wartime food systems, well, it faded. So, here's how you can use this forgotten knowledge in your own garden today. Reintroducing legumes into your growing system isn't complicated, but it does require a bit of a shift in thinking, you know. Start by planting crops like cowpeas, green grams, or pigeon peas, especially if you're in a region like Kenya where these thrive naturally. These plants, well, they don't just produce food, they actively improve your soil for future crops. Rotate them with heavy feeders like maize. After harvesting your legumes, just leave the roots in the ground. They contain nitrogen-rich nodules that will break down and fertilize the soil. This simple practice can, honestly, significantly reduce or even eliminate the need for synthetic fertilizers. Intercropping is another powerful technique. Plant legumes alongside crops like maize or sorghum. The legumes will cover the soil, reduce weeds, and provide nitrogen to neighbouring plants. This mimics natural ecosystems and in turn increases overall yield stability. For those with limited space, even a small backyard plot can benefit, you know. Grow beans vertically using simple stakes. Harvest regularly and allow some pods to dry right there on the plant for long-term storage. This gives you both immediate food and, well, a shelf stable zapas for months ahead. The nutritional advantage that made them indispensable in wartime, now that was something. Legumes were not just filler food. They were nutritional powerhouses. High in protein, fibre and essential minerals, they provided what ration diets often lacked. In many cases, they replaced meat entirely. During the war, recipes evolved to maximise their use. Bean loaves, lentil stews and pea-based breads became staples. These weren't luxury meals, but they were effective. They kept people healthy under extreme conditions. Today, with rising food costs and, growing concerns about sustainability, these same foods offer a practical solution. A kilogram of dried beans can feed a family far more efficiently than most modern processed foods. And unlike many packaged options, they don't rely on complex supply chains. Cold weather growing techniques kept fresh food available year-round. One of the lesser-known aspects of wartime agriculture was the use of cold frames to extend the growing season. These simple structures, essentially low boxes with transparent covers, allowed people to grow greens even in winter. To apply this today, you don't need expensive materials. A wooden frame and a clear plastic sheet can create a microclimate that protects crops from frost. Plant hardy greens like spinach, kale, or even young pea shoots inside. Position the frame to capture maximum sunlight and open it slightly during the day to prevent overheating. Another technique involved layering. A base of compost generates slight warmth as it decomposes. Placing soil on top and covering the structure traps this heat, creating a surprisingly stable environment for plant growth. Even in cooler regions or highland areas, this method can produce fresh vegetables when they would otherwise be unavailable. It's simple, low cost, and highly effective. Why this forgotten system matters more now than ever. What made these wartime crops and techniques so powerful wasn't just their efficiency, it was their independence. They didn't rely on global supply chains, industrial inputs, or fragile systems. They worked with nature, not against it. In a world facing climate uncertainty, soil degradation, and rising food insecurity, those qualities are no longer optional. They are essential. Relearning these methods isn't about going backward. It's about recovering proven strategies that modern systems have overlooked. The goal isn't nostalgia, it's resilience. If this kind of history matters to you, if you value practical knowledge that can actually be used, then you're in the right place. Subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who cares about real food security, and stay tuned, because the past still has a lot to teach us.